G'day guys and gal. A lot of people are confused about the motives behind so many of the traitors' fall. Why did hundreds of thousands of demigod super soldiers at the height of their empire and with all the resources and respect they could ever need decide to blow up the Imperial dream and ruin everything? Were they all just severely retarded? Well, yes, but there is more to it than that. See, the Emperor always insisted that the galaxy was a godless place. However, when that was proven to be untrue, many Primarchs, both loyalist and traitor, lost a lot of trust and faith in the Emperor, with many traitors citing that great lie as the reason why they turned on him. As if he lied about that, he could lie about anything. Maybe the Emperor's trying to become a god. Maybe the Emperor was going to exterminate them all after the Crusade. His one big lie caused a massive snowball. But what if the Emperor didn't lie? What if he was totally upfront with his sons about chaos from the get-go? What if it prevented the heresy or caused an even worse result? Before we get started, we've had some insane major mini releases in the last few weeks. The Grey Slayer and his diorama, Voldemort's minis, all 7 of which featuring awesome characters from his own homebrew series, and of course the return of the Praetorian and Peter Turbo and their diorama edition. I have nothing new for you today, however I do come bearing gifts. For the next 72 hours, using code Majorkill, you'll get 30% off store-wide. We very rarely run sales for major minis, so this is the best time to stock up. We only have a few Grey Slayer dioramas as well as the Peter vs Praetorian dioramas left, so the 30% off will clean those out. Likewise, if anything else from the range tickles your pickle, 30% off baby. After 72 hours, this will return to full pricing, and to get the discount, you will need to use code Majorkill. It doesn't automatically apply. Link is below. Today we'll go over the what if of the Emperor being honest about chaos and the warp to his sons in the Imperium, and what the result could have been. Let's get into it. To explain the lie and its significance, the Emperor preached staunch atheism to a point where religion was prosecuted. All churches on Terra were burnt, all religions crushed on every imperial world. The only trace of religion that was allowed to remain was the cult Mechanicum, because the Emperor needed Mars's cooperation, so he allowed some liberties there. The Emperor explained the warp as a different dimension that did contain entities, but those entities were mindless predators, like a type of Xenos. It was never described as a hell full of demons or where your soul goes when you die. The Emperor strongly believed that ignorance was bliss. If everyone ignored chaos because they didn't know it existed, chaos would be starved, as although it does get empowered by emotions, the bulk of its power comes from direct attention and worship. A planet will never accidentally summon a demon of Nurgle because there's a cold going around. It happens when a cult performs hectic rituals that summon warp plagues that then snowball into a demonic situation. This was, however, a double-edged sword. In the rare instances that the warp entities or demons did appear during the Great Crusade, people were confused as fuck, didn't have a good anti-demon protocol, and if they survived, they ended up shaken and confused. Grey Knights are incorruptible not because of their DNA or blessings, but because they spend so much time practicing how not to fall to chaos. If a Grey Knight was ignorant of chaos, they would be way more corruptible. However, the opposite can also occur. If someone hears about chaos or the warp, they may be curious and investigate it, or think they know better, or seek it out and try and destroy it. However, either way, they usually end up being corrupted. This actually happens to a lot of Inquisitors, so it does indeed cut both ways. The Emperor weighed up options, either lie to everyone or tell everyone the truth. He couldn't just tell the Primarchs, who may tell some Space Marines, which may then leak it to some mortals. You don't want a system where some people think hell is real and scary and the rest do not. It would just get messy and complicated. The Emperor also knew that if he told people the truth, he would be venerated as a god, which is the opposite of what he wanted. The Emperor thinks gods are fucking assholes and the galaxy is better off without them. You also do not want your Imperial armies constantly worried about warp jumps because they know that malicious intelligences within the warp seek to consume them, or that if they die in battle, their souls get eaten by demons. However, in saying this, the Emperor didn't just leave people out to dry. He told the Imperium the warp was dangerous, was not to be fucked with, and there were threats within it. That was the entire point of the Council of Nicaea after all. It's true, he didn't say, oh yeah, and watch out for Khorne, he's a massive dickhead, and oh yeah, those hectic demonic looking entities, yeah, those are demons. He sort of towed the line between letting them know there was a serious threat within the warp, but didn't label it as some kind of biblical religious thing. But the idea that he didn't extensively teach the Primarchs of the warp and its dangers is just complete nonsense. For the Primarchs, it was actually more case by case. For Primarchs like Dorn and Perturabo, the Emperor and Malcador both agreed that it was essential that they were told nothing. Both of them were masters of the material universe and would not be able to grasp the warp, because it would be something they wouldn't understand. Their curiosity and desire to make sense and order of it would consume them and cause them to fall to chaos. Dorn was always horrified and shaken by the warp's manifestations and didn't know how to deal with it, whereas other Primarchs like Corvus, Lehman and the Lion were more attuned and handled the warp threats a lot better. And we literally saw what happened to Perturabo. He resisted it initially, then then decided it was a tool and weapon for him to dominate and bend to his will, thus he is now a demon. The Emperor did admit that he told one Primarch the full truth of the warp, which is believed to be Corvus Corax, as he was the only Primarch that could handle the truth in its entirety, keep it to himself, and then not let it distract him from his task. Corvus handling the warp's nature well is probably why he's now able to become a big scary shadow monster that can beat the shit out of Demon Lorgar with his bare hands, something no other loyalist would be able to manage, other than maybe Vulcan. Funnily enough, Conrad was also shown to be able to handle the truth via the Emperor playing out various futures. It showed that Conrad was one of the only Primarchs who could be told of chaos early in its entirety and not fall to it. Conrad never actually fell to chaos, he was just a fucking asshole and batshit crazy. That future scrying scene actually explained what would have happened if various Primarchs were told of chaos prior to the heresy. We've already gone over Dawn and Perty, however it also stated that Magnus would try to defeat the warp and save real space, falling in the process. It doesn't go too deep into how many of them would fall if they knew about chaos, however it showed that whoever became War Master would fall no matter what, and it also showed that if all Primarchs were told the complete truth from day one, all of them would fall to chaos. So fundamentally, the Emperor lied, otherwise we would all be totally fucked, and the idea of a loyalist Primarchs would be a myth. So that's why he lied. But let's just humor the question and pick a different path, where the Emperor says fuck it and chooses to be honest with his sons. Perhaps out of hubris, he believes he can defy fate, which you know, he can, to be fair, and use the truth to fortify the Imperium. Now the issue is that chaos is insidious. The loyalists were able to stay loyal after finding out about chaos in the heresy, because by that point chaos had revealed itself as this ugly ass horrifying thing that was pure evil. They also saw it corrupt many things they thought incorruptible, so it was introduced as this toxic mega threat to fight against but not try to dominate. Earlier on in the heresy, when chaos was unknown, it tricked Magnus, forcibly raped Angron, manipulated Lorgar by presenting itself as the truth, raped Mortarion, and got Fulgrim to pick up a fancy sword, which then kind of raped him. It didn't corrupt anyone by appearing as this ugly-ass demonic force of pure spite and evil. In this what if, the Emperor takes every precaution. He tells them how dangerous and corrupting chaos is. He tells them it is deceitful and will whisper honeyed lies. He tells them never to seek it out or try to defeat it, and that the best they can do is focus on the crusade and starve chaos of attention. But with that said, always be on the lookout of signs of corruption and stamp it out. It would also be important that he wouldn't say shit like, Magnus, if you try fight it, you will fall, because then Magnus's ego will push him to want to prove the Emperor wrong. Likewise, the Emperor could regularly rotate which Primarch he travels with, as with him around, the Primarch would stay hyper loyal and chaos free. However, with 18 legions, if he spent 10 years with each at a time, that's 170 years the rest don't see him, not accounting for travel time. If he spends 1 year at a time with each, he's dashing around way too much and not doing Emperor stuff at all. So it'd be like whack-a-mole or plugging holes in a sinking ship. I believe that initially, the Primarchs would fight harder and be way harder to corrupt. The words would ring fresh in their ears. However, paranoia would set in. The Chaos Gods would whittle away at the Primarchs, who would probably overreact to the threat. You also need to understand how time affects people. If your dad told you not to fuck a hot girl because she is crazy and has AIDS, you'd be like, yep dad, fair enough, that would be a bad idea. But then if your dad vanished for 10 years, and at year 3, the crazy AIDS girl started hanging out with you, seemed lovely, said all the right things, told you she was on AIDS medication and that you can also just use a condom, and your chance of getting AIDS is basically 0, and even if you got it, the medication is fantastic these days, by year 5, you would be railing the shit out of the hot crazy AIDS girl, thinking your dad just didn't know the full picture, or was overprotective, or didn't have the perspective you had. Then bam, you end up with AIDS, a girl who murders your pets because you didn't text back fast enough, and she's also pregnant. And it turns out she actually isn't that hot anymore. I don't know, maybe she put on weight or something. Just to make it clear, I do not have AIDS. Now scale that up to 50 years instead of 5 and pretend you're a demigod with a gigantic ego that thinks yourself incorruptible and above all that nonsense, you can see how the corruption would seep in. For some it would be obvious, manipulate Sanguinius' love of his sons, and the red thirst to make him fall, the flesh change for Magnus, Lorgar would fall anyway as he craves a god, then the really anti-warp Primarchs like Morty and Angron, they could be tricked or forced to fall just like in canon. Now fate does change all the time in 40k, just because the Emperor and Malcador predicted that the Primarchs would all fall during a psychic chess game that they played towards the end of the heresy, doesn't mean that would be the case. Many futures said that the fall of Cadia would directly lead to the end of the Imperium. Instead it led to Guilliman's resurrection, which caused a massive Imperial resurgence, which has then been fortified by the Lion's return, none of which the Scryers foresaw. I just don't see how Primarchs like the Lion or Vulcan are falling, forewarned or not. Likewise, if Corax was told in canon and stayed loyal, why would he go traitor in the alternative version? Perhaps the writers or the Emperor himself simply claimed that telling the complete truth would have caused an absolute disaster, thus making the Emperor seem absolutely correct on his course of action to clear up why he made such a controversial and seemingly terrible decision, i.e. the lie, the lesser of two evils. But knowing what we know about 40k and the will of the Primarchs, it ain't passing the sniff test. So if we had to follow the Emperor and even the writer's vision of what would happen if the Emperor didn't lie and told the complete truth, the answer is the fall of each and every single Primarch to Chaos, but I believe the true answer is a lot more interesting and complicated than that. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up a Major Mini, 30% off store-wide for 72 hours. Use code Majorkill. Hit the subscribe button, hit the real subscribe button for more honest content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.